can I just shout this out for all my lady girlfriends? We don't want to be your mama. We don't want,
No,
we,
yeah. I get it. Okay,
you know what I
right,
mean? Your wife, your partner, she doesn't want to be your mom.
right.
She does not want to be your mom. And if by chance, that happens, I would be careful, because that's a lot. That's an extra level of burden,
It
honestly. So sometimes I think there is that misconception. And I think for men, ladies, he doesn't want to be your dad.
And I will tell you, speaking for the men, in some instances, we want you to have the security, the type of
Yes,
security that your father gave you.
absolutely.
But let us be creative and innovative and authentic in creating that the best we can.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
we don't want to
Yeah.
be your dad, but I want you to have the comfort, the peace, all the stuff that you got from your father. I want to be able to create that environment.
Absolutely.
I'll take that on. I'll take
Mhm.
that hit.
Mm-hmm.
But please don't expect me to do it the same way he did it, because
Yeah.
I can't.
Exactly.
I can't.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
we're two different people. Here's the next one. Childhood trauma.
For sure.
That one right there, one of the common reasons for conflict is that
That's
both
good.
persons have unhealed areas.
Absolutely. Yep.
Both people,
Yep.
you and your spouse,
And
have unhealed areas, have wounds.
and what I believe, what just kind of hit me in that is, sometimes I think we put the burden, we being people who have childhood traumas.
Right.
So I'm making that a general statement. What I believe that people tend to try to make the person that they're in a relationship with the healer of that trauma.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that is one of I believe one of the biggest mistakes I think that can be made in a relationship, going back to that unmet expectation,
Right.
or that unspoken expectation. And maybe they don't even know that that's what they're doing. But instead of really routing that pain in the direction where it should go, which should be to God.
Right.
Also, if there's counseling, but sometimes they want to route it all to their spouse,
Right.
route it all to the person that they're in a relationship with,
Right.
so that person can heal them.
Right.
And that's not how that should be. There should be room to communicate it,
Yeah.
room to share the pain, but there should not be an unfair expectation for that person to be your healer.
Listen, when you're seriously dating someone, or when you are married, it is not the time to play hide go seek,
That's good.
because we
That's
mask
really good.
all of our wounds. Now, we hide them
We do.
when we're dating and when we're married.
We do.
So when we start off the habit of wearing a mask and hiding, it's hard to take that mask off when you're married. So I'm not saying tell everybody everything that happened in your life right off rip, but you do need to be open and authentic, and let those organic questions that start rising up, let them come up.
Yeah.
Answer those questions honestly. Answer them truthfully. And by the time you get to marriage, which you should take some time to marry someone, to build friendship, to build relationship, get to know them, and share some intimate things about your life. Sometimes you got to test the water. You got to throw some stuff out there. Here's what when I was growing up, it was tough doing A, B, C, and D. And let's see that person's response. Because that's who you are. And that's some of the healing process that you've got to go through. That's the problem is, sometimes we marry Dr. Jekyll and end up with Mr. Hyde, or however they say, or vice versa.
Marry the prince and get a frog.
Marry the prince, get a frog.
Yeah.
And end up with you thought you had someone, but you end up finding there's someone else, because they're so wounded. And these triggers inside is what cause conflict in marriage.
And to share personally, and something that came to mind was, I remember early on in our marriage when you just very casually said to me, when are you going to let down the wall? And I think I might have been putting clothes in the washer. You might have been at the stove. And I was just, okay, here's my truth. He couldn't see my face, but my face frowned up like, who you talking to? That was my face, y'all. I was like, who this dude think he's talking to? a wall. And don't come in here asking me questions like that, right? So I know I'm trying to be as transparent as possible because I know I got some people that's gonna be right there with me, like, oh, I do that same thing. And I took a minute before I answered because I had to get out of my flesh. So like, who are you talking to? And what you mean a wall? I ain't got a wall up. What you talking? I'm over here trying to watch clothes, minding my business, you know. And I took a beat and I said walls, and I considered what you said. And in that moment, God intervened and he showed me,
wow,
you have up a wall.
Ooh.
So, you know, I was shocked and actually I was grateful because I didn't even realize that I still had this protective wall up to ensure that no matter if anything happened, I'm going to walk away unscathed. And I didn't even know. I did that subconsciously because of where I came from and what I had gone through. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's just one of those when you have to deal with stuff from how you used to be.
Right.
It doesn't even have to necessarily be a childhood trauma, but a way that you were that does not work in your right now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when you said that to me, while irritated in my flesh, I was so blessed. Wow. That you allow God to use you in that regard, because I realized it was as if God was kind of right there in my face and said, you can't be married and keep up this wall.
Come on. That I was so, like, oh my God. That is so good. So to all of our walled up people out there, male and female, let them walls down. Yeah. Can't go around saying, oh, I'm just not a communicator. You know, I don't communicate like that. You know, I keep to the brothers, you know, I just keep it to myself, man. You know, I got it. I can work with it. That's a wall, bro. Yeah. That's a wall. Yeah. Your wife, your spouse is your best friend, supposed to be. Yeah. Listen, let me tell y'all something. Let me help a few people. Look, this whole thing about my homeboy, brothers, my homeboy, and you tell your homeboy stuff, you talk through traumas in your life and issues in your life with your homeboy and deny your wife that opportunity, you are making a huge mistake. That's good. When you get married, switch best friends. Yeah. You heard me. I like that. That's good. You heard me. Yeah. If you want your marriage to last, okay, look, we 30 years in deep and looking at the next 30 more with 34 years friendship. Listen to me. Listen, Linda. Listen, Larry. I can't call you Linda because I'm talking to the guy. Man, bro, switch best friends. Your wife needs to be your best friend. And if you can't tell her something through a trauma or circumstance situation, go get you a counselor. But that whole depriving that intimate flow of communication and openness and vulnerability and humility from your wife, and every time she see you Superman, when you have a breakdown and end up being Clark Kent, she ain't gonna know what to do with that. She's not gonna know what to do with that. So, bro, I just wanted to address that because that too many guys got your road dog, your best buddy. Okay, that's cool and fine for bro type stuff. But all the intimacy that you had to have between you really and him and conversation and issues, switch that to your wife. Okay? Because she's gonna be there forevermore. Okay. All right. Here's number 4. Unhealed wounds. Yeah, that's good. We talked about childhood trauma. A wound doesn't necessarily happen when you're a child. Exactly. A wound can happen at any time. That's right. You could have got wounded, watch this, by the last person you were dating before you got to the one you're with now. Yeah. By your previous fiance before you found your husband. Absolutely. Unhealed wounds. And you know, it just made me think about the comment you made earlier. We have to remember when we're in a relationship that each person is going to go through a number of things along the way. Yeah. And in the journey, one of the first things I thought about is grief. You know, so that's a wound. Right. When you lose a parent per se. Right. It's a wound because it changes who you are. Right. And you have to learn how to deal with it. But guess what? Not only do you have to learn how to deal with it,
but your spouse.
Right.